Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to do what I call a tuition reel. We're going to learn something from this reel, and what we're going to try and learn is, why did this reel fail? One of the things that's obvious about the reel is it hasn't been maintained. You have all kinds of things going on here. Almost every screw in this reel is rusted, and here's the problem. You get to a certain point and it stops. So I'm going to try and figure it out. This reel is a Shakespeare. It's a 3500 size. It has the auto cast capability. That's not doing very well either. But I'm more curious about, why do I get to this part in the stroke and you can't go any further? Well, that's what tuition reels are about. They're about helping you to increase your knowledge, maybe give you a couple of things to consider when you're diagnosing a reel in terms of what could the potential cause be. And we're just cataloging that as a general experience. Well, we're going to try and do this, and I hope that we can even get these rusted screws out of here. And if we do, then we'll have a peek inside and try and understand what's going on. If you like these kinds of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. I'm going to start by removing the exterior pieces. In this case, we have a adjuster knob, and we can see that the Shakespeare reel is pretty much loaded with rust, and that usually means that your pieces are steel pieces and not stainless steel pieces. And here's the first test. We're going to take the spool off, see if the spool was causing the problem. No, it still hangs up. Okay, back it off. So we'll continue. To get the handle off, you need to turn that opposite the way that you crank. So in this case, if you're retrieving going counterclockwise, then you want to remove that in a clockwise manner. And regardless of whether it's a tuition reel or one of the more expensive reels that you're working on, whatever it is, you want to have a part strategy for what you're going to do when you take those pieces and parts off. So for example, even though this is rusted, it does turn. And if we can figure out what the hiccup is in there and get it back on track, well, there's no reason in the world we couldn't put this reel back together again and take it fishing. It does seem to want to crank, but at some point it's limiting out for some reason. When I take the screws out, I want to make sure they're all the same size. Those two are the same size. And we'll come down here where we'll remove the bump guard screw. That's a shorter screw. I'm going to keep that in a separate part of my parts tray with the bump guard itself. And that bump guard is on there to protect the reel in case you hit it into a gun wall or a pier or a railing on a deck, anything, right? It's to protect the bump, if you will, so that it doesn't shatter the case. All right, well, I have the three of these off, but as I was taking that off, I'm noticing that the rotor is covering a part of that side plate. Now, I'm not quite sure if it does cover it all the way. It does seem to be a seam there. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if I can get this off. Yeah, I can. Okay. All right. The case comes off, and we want to do the same thing again. We want to just see if we can't turn the reel and see if it again kind of stalls at the top. And it does. It's stalling at the top. So sometimes that means that this crosswind block is bumping up against something, and sometimes it's under the rotor. We'll back it back down again. We're going to remove the crosswind block and axle shaft now. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to ask questions. This is a forum that's a teaching forum. And if you have questions, that's the best way to learn. Ask the question and see what the potential causes are. Okay, we've taken the axle shaft off now. That'll enable us to remove the main gear, the crosswind block, and the crosswind or oscillation gear. Let's turn it again, see if we have that same issue. Well, we have a spinning reel now, so it kind of makes you wonder, right? Whatever was affecting it at the high point of the turn. So we're going to come back here to this main gear, and we have the answer. Okay. So one of the things that you always want to check for is what's going on, what could be prohibiting it, and here it is. So we're looking at the back end of the main gear. You want to check all the teeth as part of your diagnosis. Check all the teeth, and on the front they check out. But look on the back here. We have a broken tooth here. Well, normally that would enable you to continue to turn the reel, and you wouldn't have any problem. But this is the problem right here. The tooth that's broken off next to it is still sitting in the channel. You can see one of them is here. The other one of them is right here. Those are two teeth that have broken off the reel. One there and one wherever the other one fell. And what's happening there is that teeth rolls around, as a tooth rolls around and sticks in this gap here where it should be meshing. Well, the reel stops, and actually it should be meshing with your oscillation gear on the back, not the other one. So here you go. You can see it here again. This is why the reel stopped. Here's another broken tooth right between the valley here. Well, if it's broken, you're not going to be able to complete the cycle. It's going to come to here, and that's going to be a let's try this again and focus. If it's broken, you're not going to be able to make the complete revolution. It's going to be like a roadblock or a speed bump, right? You're not going to be able to sync this with the teeth on the gear. So this one's traveling along, doing just fine, thank you very much. And gets over here, and it stops because it can't move with that impediment there. So what we learned is that broken teeth will cause a behavior, even if it's not the one that we thought it was going to be. It will cause a behavior that can mimic other things. I was thinking that the trip mechanism on here, or the anti-reverse mechanism on here, was sticking, but we eliminated that when we found out that the reel can spin free. And then when we checked inside, well, the initial glance is, hey, the main gear looks great, what's going on? And then we found our speed bump issue with the broken teeth below. All right, well, that's what tuition reels are about. They're about helping you to understand the mechanics behind the reel, and then to do a diagnosis about what the issue is, and then correct the problem. Now, how do you correct this problem? It didn't look like the teeth on the oscillation gear were broken. It looks like they just got lodged in this. We're going to put this back here for a moment. We'll just show you what happens when you cover that back up. I'm going to grab this one, bring it underneath. So the repair would involve, at a minimum, getting a new main gear, and probably, if they were available, you would also want to get the oscillation gear, because when one damages, one piece of the part winds up in another, there's a good chance that both of those parts got damaged. All right, so I'm going to put this back on, and what you should see, or what we should see, when we go to put the handle back on, is that the reel turns great. The oscillation gear probably doesn't go up and down, or it'll go up and down erratically, but the reel itself, which is propelled by the big part of the main gear. It's the main gear goes into the pinion gear. That pinion gear turns the rotor. So that is what was hanging up there. We were getting up to the top, and it makes sense that it happened at the same place all of the time, because it was one tooth filling one valley in that oscillation gear, and every time that one went to mesh with the drive on the back of the main gear, that's when everything fell apart. All right, we're just going to put this back together here. Let's just put the handle on. We don't need to put the spool or anything on. And we'll just give it a test. We'll show you. So I expect this rotor to operate flawlessly now. As you can see, it does. And for now, your oscillation gear is going up and down, right? That spool is behaving the way the spool should be, but because you're missing teeth in the drive in the back there, under load, you're going to get a skip. And what that skip may do, because we've lost two pieces on this drive gear already, we'll probably shear more of them off over time. But you can see right now the spool does go up and does collect the line. So it's a lesson learned. The lesson learned is that when you're doing the diagnosis, come on in with a couple of theories. It never hurts, right? And my theory was that the way that this single stop bell anti-reverse works is that maybe that came unattached, and when it got to the point where you had that single stop under the rotor, that's why it was failing where it did. Well, I was proving myself wrong, but what I did learn from the tuition wheel is that it was the main gear that shed some teeth somehow, and it was in the back drive for the oscillation system, and that's what was causing the reel to fail. Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning about that. I hope I've given you some tips in terms of how to diagnose a faulty reel. I encourage you to find the inexpensive reels, and or the expensive ones for that matter, that are compromised, that there's some problem with, that, well, maybe you just don't know the answer to. And this helps you to gain knowledge, gain an understanding of why reels fail, and helps you in the future in terms of diagnosing and repairing those reels. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue, and everybody dedicated to keeping us safe. I appreciate everything it is that you do. And I want to thank everybody for watching and wish everybody a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.